Nanotechnology is a term that gets bandied around a fair bit. The promise of longer-lasting bread, super low-salt soy sauce, even Kraft Foods' interest in a smart blob that can be made to taste like anything using nanotechnology have all been part of the highly speculative future of nanofoods.
But what about here and now? How many of these foods already have nanoparticles in them? And what do we know about the harm they might cause? Well, the answer to both questions is we don't actually know.
Without any doubt at all, there are nanomaterials in food contact materials, and in agriculture already available in Australia. Foods to which children are exposed, such as Mentos, donuts, M&Ms, and Cadbury's chocolate, we have no idea what is on the market here, and we have no idea what their impacts are. And it is our regulators that are responsible for tracking that and regulating that, and they're just not doing it.
So let's get into the history and exactly what we're talking about here in nanotechnology. The question here is, but should artificial nanoparticles be added to our foodstuffs? And you can see in this graph here that the nanoparticular matter was first started to work on in 1959 all the way through 2010. Moore's law says that computer technology will double every year, and that's been proven year after year, and this is also applicable to nanotechnology. Despite being the first referred to nearly 40 years ago, the word of nanotechnology, particularly in relation to food, is still a long way from being part of mainstream discussion. That's why it's so important to get this out right now. All right, imagine a humble grain of rice. Shrink it down 1,000 times, and it becomes the size of a human skin cell. Shrink it 1,000 times more, and you arrive at the nanoscale, where matter is measured in the billionths of a meter. Over the past 3 decades, scientists have developed a plethora of techniques that allow them to design and build structures at the nanoscale. So to get into a further definition of what nanotechnology is, this is from the Nano Forum European Nanotechnology Symposium, again, April 2006. What it says here is nanotechnology is the manipulation of self-assembly of individual atoms, molecules, or molecular clusters into structures to create materials and devices with new or vastly different properties. Nanotechnology can work from the top down, which means the size of the smallest structures of the nanoscale, photonics applications in nanoelectronics and nanoengineering, or the bottom up, which involves manipulating individual atoms and molecules into nanostructures and more closely resembles chemistry or biology. The definition of nanotechnology is based on the prefix nano, which is from the Greek word meaning dwarf. In more technical terms, the word nano means 10 to the negative ninth power, or 1/billionth of something. For comparison, a virus is roughly 100 nanometers in size. The word of nanotechnology is generally used when referring to materials with a size of 0.1 to 100 nanometers. However, it is also inherent that these materials should display different properties from bulk of micrometric and larger materials as a result of their size. These differences include physical strength, chemical reactivity, electrical conductance, magnetism, and optical effects. Now they are applying these to our food for the past 40 years, folks. Nanoparticles could smuggle vitamins into our daily diet, help deliver medicines where they are needed in the body, or even help to reduce food waste. The possibilities seem endless, said Shhh, toxicology expert at Intertech, a multinational safety consultancy that works extensively in the nanotech area. Quote, think of a nanoscale filters to remove bacteria from milk and other beverages without boiling, or nanosensors to detect and alert consumers to pathogens or spoiled food. Some groups are even attempting molecular food manufacturing, he adds. That involves creating food from its basic atomic components, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and so on, without the need for soil, seed, or animals. This is where they're going. If nanofood sounds like science fiction, think again. Nanomaterials are already on your plate. Natural processes used to make cheese, for example, produce nanoscale particles, but consumers tend to be more concerned by artificial nanoparticles that could be added to their food. The problem is that the qualities that make nanomaterials so attractive to the researcher and industry across a wide range of fields, this is important, is the same qualities that make them harmful to human health, says Kathy Jo Wetter, who works on nanotechnologies for the ETC group. For example, nanoparticles small size can make some of them more bioavailable, meaning they are more likely to be absorbed by living tissue. So here's a picture I had previously. You saw the buckyballs here, and the engineering makeup of these atomic cell size nanoparticulate matter. And here's the another outline of the history of nanotechnology. And you can see that Schick Razor, researchers at Rice University, IBM back in 1990, they've been all working on this stuff for quite a long time. Dunkin' Brands Donuts is getting in here. And what I wanted to next bring your attention to is that this is from June 2009 from the foodnavigator.usa.com. This toxicologist George Burdock of the Burdock Group, quote, the safety risks of nanotechnology used by the food industry could make it, quote, the new asbestos. And what you want to be made aware of is that the dangers involved are not being known at this time. They don't want to know what the dangers are. The regulations, FDA, USDA, have zero oversight into this, which we'll get into more. But this is from a nanoeconomist. So we got nanoeconomists going on. This is from an article in 2010. In the past 2 decades, nanotechnology has enabled the creation of new products and changed how many existing goods are being produced. This impact will only continue. It's better to understand how nanotech is being created and commercialized. The greatest challenge for economics interested in tracking nanotech is lack of data. There is plenty of information available of how governments spend nanotech dollars, but there is little or unknown about how the private sector is developing nanotech. Now, the U.S. Patent Office, she had to go to the U.S. Patent Office to figure out who was doing what, and she found back in 2010 there were 4,288 patents taken out. And you can see it's all the big boys: IBM, Canon, Samsung, Hewlett-Packard, 3M, Kodak, Nanosystems, Mitsubishi, DuPont, etc. Now, what exactly is going in the food here? Let's take a look, and I'll show you this PowerPoint presentation. This is from a nanotech presentation in Canadian Farm Business Management. And just we'll go through real quick, and I'll do a more elaborate in a minute here about what the different foodstuffs are they've already entered the system in. But here we can see spinach may soon power mobile devices. Nanotechnology, the ability to work at the atomic, molecular, and even submolecular levels, okay? This is the growth of nanotechnology. It's growing very fast. It's very profitable because the cost is so cheap. The barrier entry is none. There's no regulations. What kind of business model is that, folks? Health and nutrition, food processing, safety. But now here's the different ways they're using nanotechnology. They have nanoencapsulation, where they put it inside the product, the holding products, the bottles and the wrappers that they put our food in. Nanoceuticals. Now, nanoceuticals is pharmaceuticals, and nano is small. So here's your chemicals going in at the subatomic particulate matter. Then we have nanocomposites. We have nano bioimmune science detection spray. Lab in a pea pod. Now take a look at this, folks, and we'll get into this a little more. They're actually putting chips inside the food so they can detect where it's coming from. And this is very, very hard for people to fathom or realize how far in advanced RFID technology is, that they can actually stick it inside our food, they say, for tracking purposes, but they can also be tracking us because now it's in our system. We'll get into that more in a little bit. All right, so nano-powered catalytic device coated with 20 nanometer width-light zeolite nanoparticles, US FDA NSF approved. It makes better taste, crispier, deep-fried foods. Oh, yum. All right, now we got nano-electronic tongue. Basically what this is doing is taking the place of your tongue to say this tastes good. We have nano-cleaning particles for algae preventer. We have nano feed for chickens that will be going into your eggs. Nano-selenium may stop bird flu, but we don't know because we don't test it. Nano agrochemicals. Smart dust is also something to be spoken about into the geoengineering as well. And what I'm referring to in geoengineering is smart dust is being sprayed in the nanoparticulate matter in the skies with the aluminum and strontium and geoengineering, but that's for another time, another subject. All right, so what else is this nanotechnology being used in currently? Well, it's used in the management of farm production. Here we see that's used, they're saying they're using it in sensors for grain storage, automatic sensors, carbon dioxide sensors, temperature sensors. I mean, all this gets into our food systems, folks. Nano this and nano that. They're coming out with smart treatment delivery systems. Anytime you see the word smart, what they mean is smart for them and dumb for us, okay? Challenges and issues. What are the unintended consequences? Little is known about how the particulars interact with the environment and human body. Nanoparticulars might ferry toxins right past the body's normal defense, and if we don't test for it, we don't know. Potential or unforeseen risks, concerns over the use of consumer safety, and ethical issues. It is the next big thing is really small. No shit.
Dr. Ricky Yarder is a leading researcher into nanoscience in food technology. He's at Sydney University to brief Australian food industry experts on the rapidly expanding global field.
Well, there's a number of benefits that nanotechnology could bring in the food area. For example, the delivery of nutrients at a much more lower level.
But right now we don't even have a way to test for nanotechnology in food. And there's inconclusive research on both sides of the debate over their harm and benefit.
That's one of the concerns. What is the long-term effect of consuming products that have nanoparticles? You know, because of the size of these nanoparticles, because they're so small and they can penetrate membranes and tissues, there is some concerns of these nanoparticles accumulating in tissues and organs, and will that have a detrimental effect to the consumer who consumes that product?
Okay, so let's get into what's been already in our food systems that very few people, if anybody, actually knows about. Nanoparticles in bottle plastic, double shelf life of pasteurized fresh milk from Brazil, has increased shelf life of grade A pasteurized fresh whole milk from 7 to 15 days, incorporating silver-based microparticles with bactericidal, antimicrobial, and self-sterilizing properties into the rigid bottles used as packaging material. Goes on to say that the microparticles are inert, so there is no risk of their detaching from the packaging and coming into contact with milk. No risk at all, folks. Nanonex plans to market the product in Europe and the United States, where much bigger volumes of fresh milk are being consumed. All right, and how about your wine? Are you ready for some nanotechnology engineered wine? Now notice this article is from 2007. It's 5 years before the last one. Welcome to the world of nanofoods. Two recent articles on South African website and UK newspaper shed light on what large food manufacturers are planning to do with food based on nano-encapsulation technology that will make nanotechnology engineered foods a reality. A new world of unlimited choices to some say, frankenfood to others. Hello GMOs. Take wine for example. Researchers are using food giant Kraft have developed a colorless, tasteless liquid in the lab that consumers will design after you bought it. You will decide what color and flavor you'd like the drink to be and what nutrients it will have in it once you get home. You'll zap the product with a correctly tuned microwave transmitter. This will activate nano capsules, each one about 2,000 times smaller than the width of a hair, containing the necessary chemicals for your choice of drink. Green-hued, blackcurrant flavored with a touch of caffeine and omega-3 oil, say. Unactivated nanocapsules pass through the body and are excreted, while those switched on by Kraft's microwaves will impart taste, flavor, appearance, and even nutritional content to a designer drink. Feel like a glass of Sauvignon Blanc? Switch on the green peppers. Syrah? Dial up some wood smoke, sweaty saddles, and spice. Goodbye cork taint, hello programmable alcohol levels. Nanotechnology can deliver solutions to the age-old problems of wine, writes Neil Pendock. Already in use in brewing and dairy production are nanofilters, screens so small they can filter out microorganisms and even viruses. In lab experiments with these nanofilters, the color has been removed from red wine, turning it to white. Nano-encapsulation of flavor molecules will allow chefs to accurately determine how spicy they wish a dish to be perceived and tune its diners' preferences, or even allow nanocapsules to be selectively activated during a meal. Activation by wine is one example. If that's too much for you, maybe the scientists at Kraft will create a special beverage for you called, quote, traditional wine. Now, if we go over to here, we can see some of the different applications of the food groups. This is from a 2008 article in Global Research. There are 4 key focus areas for nanotechnology food research. Nanomodification of seed and fertilizer pesticides, food, quote, fortification and modification, interactive, here's this word again, smart food, smart packaging and food tracking. Again, if it's smart for them, it's dumb for us. Nanomodification of seeds and fertilizers. Proponents say that they will be used to further automate the modern ag business. Farm inputs, seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, and labor will increasingly become technology modified. Automatic engineering will enable the DNA seeds to be rearranged in order to obtain different plant properties, including color, growth, season, etc. Highly potent, atomically engineered fertilizers and pesticides will be used to maintain plant growth. Nanosensors will enable plant growth, pH levels, the presence of nutrients, on and on. Now we have food fortification and modification. The tech companies are working to fortify with nano-encapsulated nutrients, which we just went over. Nanotechnology will enable junk foods like ice cream and chocolate to be modified to reduce the amount of fats and sugars the body can absorb. And it says that nano industry could market vitamin and fiber-fortified fat and sugar-blocked junk food as health-promoting and weight-reducing. Here we go. Interactive smart food. Companies such as Kraft and Nestle are designing smart foods that will interact with consumers to personalize food, changing color, flavor, and nutrients on demand. Smart packaging and food tracking. Nanotechnology will dramatically extend shelf life. Mars already has a patent on an invisible, edible nanowrapper which will envelop foods, preventing gas and moisture exchange. Smart packaging containing nanosensors and antimicrobial activators is being developed that will be capable of detecting food spoilage and releasing nano antimicrobes to extend food shelf life, enabling supermarkets to keep food for even greater periods of time for its sales. Nanosensors embedded into food products as tiny chips that were invisible to the human eye would also act as electronic barcodes. So you'd be injecting RFID chips in your system, folks. Now, if you think this is getting into really dark matter, well, here's a quote that I had up originally from the beginning. Dr. David Bennett, a veteran biochemist, says, quote, very little risk assessment has been done on this area, even on some products already entering the market, and it's an open question whether it will be done. To Greenpeace and Friends of Earth, it's a gift. And he went on the lack of proper assessment of nanotechnology, quote, scares me shitless. And I don't understand this comment by why Greenpeace and Friends of the Earth think it's a gift. All right, so to give you an idea of the size of the market that we're dealing with here, that the public has zero knowledge perception, this is from August 2009 from the U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institute of Health. And just quickly, nanotechnologies incorporated an estimated $82 billion worth of manufactured goods in 2008 and appeared in over 800 consumer products on the market. Pre-global financial crisis estimates were that nanotechnology would be in the U.S. $2.6 trillion worth of goods by 2014. I have been unable to find any current estimates updated since 2009 on that estimate, but it is at least that size, and the public is completely unaware. And what I want to bring your attention to is this chart, the evolution of nanotechnology. And this chart is where they're showing that the acceleration of growth, you see here 2010, look at the acceleration of growth they're planning to enter into the markets. And you can see that back in 1970, nanotechnology began to be introduced into our food supply, but here we're right in the sweet spot of this mass accelerated growth, which nobody has a clue about what's going on. So here we can read where some of the world's largest food manufacturers, Nestle, Heinz, Unilever, are blazing the trail, while hundreds of smaller companies will follow their lead. Yet despite potential benefits compared with other nanotechnology arenas, nanofoods do not get a lot of publicity. Here's a list which I'll post in the show notes of just some of the products that have been developed just over the past 5 to 10 years that are in our food already and being developed as well. In the forefront is Kraft. Their industry leads established a nanotech consortium, a collaboration of 15 universities, national research labs in 2000. In 2000, folks, Kraft's focuses on interactive foods and beverages. Australia, for instance, nanocapsules are being used to omega-3 fatty acids to one of the country's most popular brands of white bread. According to the manufacturer, nanocapsules of tuna fish oil added to the tip-top bread provide valuable nutrients, while the encapsulation prevents the bread from tasting fishy. Cannot make this stuff up. In other parts of the world, nanotechnology efforts are focused on the agricultural side of food production. A joint effort among universities in Indiana and Mexico is directed at developing non-toxic nanoscale herbicides. Researchers at Tamil Nadu Agricultural University in India and Monterrey Tech in Mexico are looking for ways to attack a weed's seed coating and prevent it from germinating. The range of current nanofood research and development is impressive as the industry's projected growth. Last August, estimated that the nanotechnologies in the food industry were currently valued at $410 million and would grow to $5.8 billion from 2012. And this article was written in 2006. So you see it's everywhere. It's been in our food systems. There's no regulation. Here's an article, June 2014, Pepsi and Coke deny using potentially dangerous nanosized titanium dioxide. All right, so how much does taxpayer dollar government funding play in the assistance to corporations in their bringing of nanofoods into the marketplace? This is Scientific America, again, 2008. Very hard to find current information, so you got to go back some 7 years to find out. So look at this. A wide variety of government agencies, including the FDA and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, have taken an interest in nanotechnology. The federal government spent more than $1.4 billion on research last year as part of the National Nanotechnology Initiative, a joint effort of 25 federal agencies investigating the promise and potential perils of emerging technology. Of that, $40 million was devoted to health and safety research, an amount set to nearly double in 2009. The FDA could not provide figures on how much it spends on assessing the safety of nanoparticles. They don't want to know, they don't ask. How safe? Well, in Nanotechnology and Food Products, published in last year's National Academics Press, we can read that carbon nanomaterials can cause, quote, inflammatory disease and destruction in the lungs with widespread formation of granulomas. A granuloma is a mass of cells formed to attempt to wall off a foreign substance in the body that is perceived as harmful. Quote, based on the data from studies like this, it is well known now that a variety of nanomaterials interact with the immune system to produce effects ranging from the mild stimulation of the immune system to severe granulomatous change in, for instance, the lung. There's more. Quote, despite the lack of clarity around what exactly is causing the damage, it appears that some organs, namely the liver, the spleen, and the lymph nodes, tend to accumulate nanomaterial much more quickly than other organs do. The liver, spleen, and lymph nodes are the body's filters and remove harmful substances we ingest, either knowingly or unknowingly or on purpose. The problem is that our filters are designed to filter out particulates of a certain size. They say the nanomaterials picked up by the liver and other organs, quote, then diffuse through the tissues such that their exact cellular location cannot be pinpointed. It's too small to know, they're saying. Other studies have shown that carbon nanoparticulates used in food packaging act like asbestos, and that exposure may cause mesothelioma and lung cancer in mice. In other words, once the nanoparticles migrate from food packaging into food, they then migrate from the organs that are meant to filter out harmful substances into other parts of the body. The filters seem to have no effect on such tiny particles. The author adds, quote, these are issues that need to be considered soon because some of the nanomaterials mentioned and described have already started appearing in food. So over here into nanomaterials in our soil, this is the biosolids they're using into the fertilizers and whatnot thus far. And this is from a doctor, Dr. Stephen Suppin, on March 20th, 2013, okay? So let's see what the good doctor has to say. Thus far, governments are allowing the commercialization of ENMs. ENM means engineered nanomaterials, okay? And that's the name they use, engineered nanomaterials, and we need to use that when we address them like we do GMOs. And nano-enabled products while they deliberate whether or how much to regulate nanotechnologies. Again, we're putting it out there, but we're not doing anything. For more than 2 decades, 2 eminent toxologists advised that, quote, it would be prudent to examine and address environment and human health concerns before the widespread adoption of nanotechnology. With the exception of some of medical applications of nanotechnology, governments, corporations, and even university-based startup companies have ignored this advice. As a result, governments have allowed hundreds of, perhaps thousands of consumer products marketed as incorporating engineered nanomaterials to be commercialized without any pre-market safety assessment. All right, moving on. The problem has many dimensions. U.S. regulators only beginning to propose nanospecific occupational safety rules to protect workers, such as new draft rules that will cover carbon nanotubes, but it's not clear if this rule would protect farmers and farm workers applying nanotubes in biosolids. The farm workers who apply the biosolids with carbon nanotubes, for example, might be, over time, at a risk of afflictions of laboratory rats' lungs exposed to CNTs, quote, inflammation, fibrosis, and toxicological changes in the lung. When the CNTs are applied to skin cells, biochemicals that indicate cellular damage increase. There is no informed, broad-based constituency to support regulating engineered nanomaterials in fertilizers and biosolids to protect health and soil biodiversity. That there are no new rules in Europe, and some voices, including the man from Unilever's research labs, dismiss the need for any. Nanotech is natural, he insisted. It uses no new substances, just as the same ones smaller, but other scientists in the field disagree. Quote, matter has different behavior at nanoscales, said Dr. Kees Ekiel from the Dutch Twente University. Quote, that doesn't mean different risks aren't associated with it. We don't know what risks are, and the current regulations don't take that into account. But what will happen in the packaging it gets into us? No one seems to know, as a significant body as the UK's Royal Society has expressed worries over the lack of research into the health implications of free nanoparticles being introduced in our environment. The size is a question. Less than the size of a virus has unique abilities. They can cross the body's natural barriers entering into cells or through the liver into the bloodstream or even through the cell wall surrounding the brain. Quote, I'd like to drink a glass of water and know that the contents are going into my stomach and not my lungs, said Dr. Quasim Chaudhry of the British government's Central Science Laboratory. We are giving very toxic chemicals the ability to cross cell membranes to go where they've never gone before. Where will they end up? It's been shown that free nanoparticles inhaled can go straight to the brain. There are lots of concerns. Yes, there are. Let's go over to here first. This is from an article about China, criticizing China, September 2012, in Nature, one of the most prestigious medical journals, criticizing China about their regulations. Again, no microscope going on the United States or UK. We've got to go across the pond to rip apart the Chinese. In 2009, researchers claimed that nanoparticles were responsible for lung damage in 7 workers at a printing factory in Beijing. 2 died. Volatile organic compounds may have been to blame. But such incidents could be easily damage the fledgling industry's reputation, referring to nanotechnology. The Chinese public remains unconcerned. Well, unconcerned because they're not knowing about it. An ethicist in Dalian University of Technology, nearly 80% of some 6,000 Chinese respondents said they are not worried about the safety of nanoparticles. Research at the meeting said the better safety testing was needed for products containing nanoparticles that can be absorbed by the body. But occupational exposure among workers handling the materials may present the greatest risks. Chinese workplace safety rules are not always implemented. Quote, the main challenge is to tease out what characteristics make some nanoparticles hazardous, said Zhao. Chinese researchers will next year join in forces with Europe and the United States in a project called Nano Solutions, develop a nano safety classification system based on the characteristics of toxic studies focusing on 30 materials such as carbon nanotubes and nanoparticles of titanium dioxide and silver. The team will use high-throughput screening to identify the most toxic and then investigate their biological effects in animal studies. And this article, again, was written back in 2012, and I can almost assure you that nothing has been done since then. All right, just to further drive home the ill health of these nanoparticles, this is again from Scientific America, March 13th, 2008. The report from the Friends of the Earth builds on several studies in recent years that have shown some nanoparticles may cause harm. A 2005 study in Environmental Science and Technology showed that zinc oxide nanoparticles were toxic to human lung cells in lab tests, even at low concentrations. Other studies of tiny silver particles killed liver and brain cells from rats. They are more chemically reactive and more bioactive. Illuminato says, because of their size, which allows them to easily penetrate organs and cells. Again, it goes on to say that there's very little to no government regulation or oversight. USDA currently does not specifically require nanoparticles to be proved safe, does not require manufacturers to provide tests. Industry would bear the burden of demonstrating the safety of the material under conditions of use. To date, there are few published industry, government, or scientific studies on the health and environmental impacts of nanoparticles.
FSANZ, or Food Standards Australia New Zealand, says it's not received any applications to approve new or novel nanoscale particles for food use.
Right now, jurisdictions around the world are struggling with how to regulate nanoproducts. Right at this point in time, no products have actually been approved for nano release.
But Friends of the Earth estimates there's now hundreds of food products available in Australia that may contain nanomaterials.
So this is from E! Magazine back in 2012. Government's perspective, nanoforms of silver, iron, and titanium are no different fundamentally. Add gold in there from their scaled-up counterparts, which have already been safety tested. So the agency has ushered the particles into the food supply under the GRAS, generally recognized as safe provision. In other words, companies are not required to disclose these tiny ingredients, hence the FDA's ignorance. Friends of the Earth notes, quote, the properties of nanoparticles are not governed by the same physical laws as larger particles, but by quantum mechanics. The physical and chemical properties of nanoparticles, for example, color, solubility, strength, chemical reactivity, and toxicity, can therefore be quite different from those of larger particles of the same substance. The FDA issued a draft guidance in 2012 advising nanotechnology to identify for safety substance. And then it goes on to say the consumers are left clueless. Before companies consider labeling products as nano-containing, it would probably help if they knew what was in them. In many cases, particularly when it comes to food packaging, they don't. Environmental and shareholder advocacy organizations, As You Sow, released a 2011 report on nanomaterials in which they interviewed 5 giant food groups, Kraft, Yum Brands, PepsiCo, McDonald's, and Whole Foods, in hopes to learn how these companies are using or planning to use nanomaterials. Quote, they had to go back to their supply chains and check. It's hard for the companies to know the manufacturers of nanofood or nanopackaging because they're not required to identify it. All right, so here's an article from non-GMOreport.com, and this is the comparison between nanotechnology and the same with GMOs. They simply won't tell us what's in their food. They don't want the liability. And as very few people have even heard of nanotechnology, and as you're beginning to understand, it's prevalent in all our food groups. You think GMO was bad? Well, this is nanotechnology. GMOs on steroid, excuse me. So let's go down and look at the regulations. We'll get back to the health risk in a minute, but regulations. Government regulators are also lagging far behind the rapid development. EU has taken the lead regulating nanotechnology as it did with GM foods. The reason the EU has taken the lead is because the government pays for the health insurance, while in the United States it's privatized, so the more people get sick, the more profits go up. The United States is ranked #1 in cost in healthcare. It ranks number 38th in quality of healthcare. Tell your doctor. The EU will require nanoparticles in cosmetics to be labeled. Notice they're not talking about food. The problem with the new regulations that will take nearly, get this, 44 months to come into effect, despite the fact that nanocosmetics are already on the store shelves. What about the food, folks? All right, early this year, Canada became the first government to require companies to provide information about their use of nanomaterials. The United States and Food and Drug Administration current policy is similar to that of policy of substantial equivalence with GM foods, treating nanoparticulate food ingredients no differently than bulk material ingredients or products. Shhh for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has called for the creation of a new Department of Environmental and Consumer Protection to oversee nanoproduct development and risk assessment. Ooh, more government. As with GM foods, the U.S. government and industry both argue that labeling products containing nanoparticles would scare the consumers with inaccurate or incomplete information. As consumers eat GM foods without their knowledge, so they are unaware of using and consuming nano-based products. All right. This is very important to understand right here. There is very little public awareness of nanotechnology. Oops, sorry. One survey found that 49% of Americans have never heard anything about nanotechnology. I bet that's a lot higher. 26% heard just a little, 17% heard some, and only 7% heard a lot. 7% of the country have known about nanotechnology in our foods. It's been in our foods for over a decade, if not more. All right? All right, so here's a public article from the U.S. National Library of Medicine, the National Institute of Health, 2009. This is how long they've been doing this, looking at this stuff. What do we need to know what the public thinks about nanotechnology? Public attitudes are vital in understanding. This paper summarizes the findings of a 3-year tracking study. Again, nanotechnology, $82 billion in 2008, growing to $2.6 trillion worth of goods by 2014. 800 consumer products already on the market. Nobody knows a thing about this. Has been pointed out by Kahan, Slovik, Brahm, Gastel, and Cohen, quote, not much more is known about public perception of the risks of nanotechnology than is known about nanotechnology risks themselves. We don't want to know. Studies done to Nature Nanotechnology, 12 significant survey studies in February 2009. The conclusions, while literature on public perception is becoming more mature and rigorous, there's still a need for the public to understand public attitudes better, not to inform the public, but understand their attitudes. As scientists, policymakers, and businesses will be better positioned to anticipate trends that will dictate how the public might react to new scientific developments or products. Yeah, when we find out, we're going to be really upset, so we need to know how to react, is what they're saying. At the simplest level, the findings of the 3 studies show that the public has very high expectations of nanotechnology. Concerns are only moderate. while knowledge and awareness are rather low. Unbelievable. 2008 study by Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars Project on Emerging Nanotechnologies found that 49% had heard nothing at all about nanotechnology and 26% had heard little. So that takes us to 85% know nothing to little about nanotechnology. Okay, so they're keeping us in the dark on purpose. The study found that after hearing information provided by whom should be the question, there was a 10% increase in the proportion of respondents who felt the benefits would outweigh the risk, and there was a larger increase for those who thought the risk would outweigh the benefits. A 13% increase in proportion says risk would be equal, and a large drop in those not sure. And finally, down here it says, the study found that while 86% had stated they were excited or hopeful about nanotechnology during the initial questions of the survey, following the intensive follow-up interview, again, by who was doing the interview and what were the questions, most people strengthened positive views held about nanotechnology, with this figure rising to 92%. Concern and alarm dropped from 9% to 6% after completing the qualitative interviews. All right, so here's a very important article on how nanotechnology is entering our food supply by Healthy Holistic Living. There's no date on this, so I don't know when it was done, but it's really important to understand. Listen to this. Many food manufacturers have actually stopped promoting their research and discoveries in the nanotech arena precisely because they don't want to alarm consumers. An expert from the global markets research firm, quote, Unilever and Nestle are doing research on texture enhancements on things like ice cream, but they're worried about profitability, end quote. The one thing that could potentially affect those profits? Consumer fears, no doubt. So how might the industry gain our trust, our acceptance of their technological magic? In a recent column by Carolyn Scott Thomas in the Institute of Food Technology, she writes, quote, major industry players discussed how to avoid a rerun of the GMO debacle with consumers, with some saying that one solution could be to say nothing about introducing nanotechnology in foods and do it anyway. In fact, from the same online column, we learn at the conference, Lauren Tarantino of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, quote, provided an overview of the range of FDA authorities over food products and argued that nanotechnology can be viewed as a special case of what the FDA has been doing all along with food. Essentially, the burden of proof is on the manufacturers to show that any changes they have made do not affect food safety. Time to fire the FDA, time to fire the USDA. They could care less about the well-being of us and our children. All right, so here's the oversight committee, the way they protect themselves, and this is part of the worldwide New World Order, the IMF, the New World, the World Bank, the United Nations. This is how they roll to protect all the corporations from any indemnity, and this is the Nanotechnology Industry Association, and just look through here, folks. It's highly developed. Products upon products upon products, activities and whatnot. They even have monitoring devices you got to click on to see which ways you can monitor all your stuff. So let's find out who we are. And what you'll read when you find out about who they are, and they have corporate memberships only, is it's an international office in Brussels, Belgium. Brussels, Belgium, if you don't know, is the place where a lot of the Illuminati hang out. Independent UK national representation, UK based in London. There's the two power bases. Membership is made up of varied companies, all of which at different stages of their commercial existence with a variety of interests. And so the goal of the NIA is to create a single voice to interface with governments, i.e. buy them off, to be a source of consultation, to engage with the public, to communicate with the benefits of nanotechnology and the media, and to inform the public debate on nanotechnology, i.e. control the debate on nanotechnology. All right, so wrapping up here, let's get into what is the future of nanofood, what the industry and corporations are predicting their future products will be. Again, this is the Nano Forum Organization, European Nanotechnology Gateway, April 2006. It's hard to find new information on this stuff. Scrolling down here, I wanted to get into some of the biosensors they're using. They're using crop-controlled environmental agriculture, hydroponically based agriculture, computerized systems to monitor and regulate localized environments such as field crops. The CEA provides scouting capabilities to determine the best time for harvest, vitality of crop, food security, microbial or chemical contamination. So they have to have sensors to do this. So they call it precision farming. So one of the major roles of the nanotechnology devices will be increased use of autonomous sensors linked to GPS systems for real-time monitoring. Wireless sensors are already being used in certain parts of the U.S. and Australia. Remember this, 2006. California Vineyards Pickberry and Sonoma County has installed Wi-Fi systems to help the AT company Accenture. All right, the global market for wireless sensors is predicted to be $7 billion by 2010. Guess what it is now? Smart devices will act as both preventative and early warning systems. Other companies employ suspensions of particles which can be either water or oil based and can form uniform suspensions of pesticide or herbicidal nanoparticles. Can be easily incorporated into various media such as gels, creams, liquids, and have multiple applications for preventative measures, a treatment or preservation of harvested products. Syngenta, one of the largest agrochemical corporations, is using nanoemulsions in its pesticide, yummy, regulating products as Primomax, plant growth regulator, which applied prior to the onset of stress such as heat and drought. So here we are in California, the western states, and the greatest droughts in history. And here they are coming up with their what they call nanoceuticals. That's NanoFood, nanotechnology, and pharmaceuticals, nanoceuticals. And they will be able to grow food in the massive heat and drought to come. And we, the organic farmers, are going to be just shit out of luck. That's where we're heading. All right, skipping down here, you can see that it's in our food supply. German chemical BAS spent $105 million to fund water purification techniques. Dow Chemical subsidiary Filmtech and Suez has meanwhile installed it in ultrafiltration systems, so it's in our water supplies. Nanoscale powder made from iron used effectively tool for cleaning out contaminated soil and groundwater. All right, so here into the food industry, they're building on the concept of on-demand food, the idea of interactive food, to allow consumers to modify food depending on their own nutritional needs and tastes. The concept is that thousands of nanocapsules containing flavor or color enhancers or added nutritional elements would remain dormant in the food and only be released when triggered by the consumer. Most of the food giants support specific research to capture and share of the nanofood market for the next decade. Yes, that's called a monopoly. Although there are ambitious thoughts of creating molecular food using nanomachines, this is unrealistic in the foreseeable future. Instead of nanotechnologists are more optimistic about the potential to change the existing system of food processing and to assure the safety of food products, creating a healthy food culture. But they don't test it. There's no regulatory agency overseeing it. So how? Oh my gosh. They're also hopeful of enhancing the nutritional quality of food through selective additives and improvements to the way the body digests and absorbs food. Although some of these goals are further away, the food packaging industry already incorporates nanotechnology into its products. Packaging safety. All right, let's skip over to that. Agromicron has developed a nanobioluminescence detection spray which contains a luminescent protein engineered to bind the surface of microbes such as Salmonella and E. coli. It emits a visible glow, thus allowing an easy detection of contaminated food or beverages. The more intense the glow, the higher the bacterial contamination. The company aims to market the product under the name Biomark. Currently designing spray to apply in ocean freight container ships as well to fight bioterrorism. So the government will come in and say you have to have nanofood technology to fight bioterrorism. You can see it already once we discover what nanofood technology is. EU researchers on the Good Food Project have developed a portable nanosensor to detect chemicals and pathogens and toxins in food. Now, just understand that they're putting this in our food and as a detection system that we will eat, and it'll be monitored through our bodies with these RFID sensors, okay? The project is developing and using DNA biochips to detect pathogens, a technique that can be applied to determine the presence of different kinds of harmful bacteria in meat, fish affecting fruit. The EU-funded Biofinger project, which has the aim of developing versatile, inexpensive, and easy-to-use diagnostic tools for health, environment, and other applications, has found different applications in food analysis. The U.S. military is developing super sensors to be used in times of terrorist attacks. Current systems take several days to confirm the presence of pathogens. However, new nanotechnology super sensors will be able to detect pathogens immediately. Nanotechnology has been found in monitoring tagging of food items. RFID technology was developed by the military 50 years ago and has now found its way to numerous applications in food monitoring shops to improve safety. It consists of microprocessors and an antenna that can transmit data to wireless receivers and can be used to monitor the item from the warehouse to consumer hands, and it should say into your stomachs. Unlike barcodes, it needs to be scanned manually. RFID doesn't require line of sight. It's possible to automatically read hundreds of tags a second. With a mission to provide safe food to consumers, but we're not going to test it, so we don't know. The consortium's priorities are to develop sensors which can almost instantly reveal whether a food sample contains toxic compounds or bacteria. All right, food processing. One of the leading bakeries in Western Australia has been successful in incorporating nanocapsules containing tuna fish oil in their top-selling product, Tip Top Up Bread. The nanocapsules are designed to break open only when they have reached the stomach, thus avoiding the unpleasant taste of fish oil. You can't make this stuff up. Israel, Nutralease, nano-sized self-assembled liquid structures. The nutraceuticals are contained within the aqueous interior. They have been incorporated into various lipocene, beta-carotene, lutein, and phytosterols. The Nutralease particles allow these compounds to enter the bloodstream from the gut more easily, thus increasing their bioavailability. I would imagine this is targeted at the people that are gluten intolerant. All right, how about this one? Kraft Foods has established a consortium research of 15 universities to look at applications of nanotechnology, allow a consumer to choose from different flavors and colors. The consortium also has plans to develop smart foods which will release nutrients in response to deficiencies detected by nanosensors and nanocapsules, which will be ingested with the food but remain dormant until activated. All these new developments will make the concept of super foodstuffs a reality, and these are expected to offer many different potential benefits, including increased energy, improved cognitive functions, better immune function, and anti-aging benefits. German company Aquanova has developed a new technology combining two substances of fat reduction and satiety into a single nanocarrier, an innovation said to a new approach to intelligent weight management. Unilever is developing low-fat ice creams by decreasing the size of emulsion particles. By doing so, it hopes to use up to 90% less of the emulsion and decrease fat content from 16% to 1%. So all the doctors are going to be told by the drug reps that you've got to have these nanoparticles in your system, and it's healthy for you because you're reducing the fat content, right? You can already see it coming. All right, the use of silver nanoparticles in refrigerators, All Spray for Life, which is manufactured by Health Plus International, uses a newly designed, not tested, pre-metered nanoaerosol nanoceutical delivery system for transmucosal administration of dietary supplements, resulting in increased bioavailability compared with gastrointestinal absorption. Again, addressing the gluten people. In closing here, folks, whatever the impacts of nanotechnology on food industry and products entering the market, they want you to know the safety of food will remain their prime concern. Institute of the Food Science and Technology in the UK argues that more safety data is required before nanoparticles can be included in the food. The report points out that the current legislation does not force companies to label food items containing nanoparticles, and so consumers are unlikely to be aware of such applications in food items. It calls for an appropriate pre-market safety evaluation focusing on the effects of particle size as well as composition. The ETC group has gone further and has called for a moratorium on nanotechnology for agri-food. 2006 they were saying this. Finally, it may be possible one day to manufacture food from component atoms and molecules, the so-called molecular food manufacturing. Right now they're calling it engineering nanomaterials, ENM. Already some research groups are exploring this, but still from a top-down approach using cells rather than molecules. Although the practical application of such technology is far into the future, it is expected that this could allow a more efficient and sustainable food production process to be developed where less raw materials are consumed and a food of higher nutritional quality is obtained, i.e. little cost because the manufacturing of this NanoFood technology does not require much cost outlay because they can remanufacture and recreate the cells and molecules ad infinitum at very little cost.
Mars Australia for comment and were unable to find a local spokesperson for Mentos. For their part, the companies deny that they use nanotechnology in their products. Meanwhile, in the void left by little or no regulations, brands are being slippery about their definition of nanotechnology.
There's a basic assumption I think you can make that if there are new or novel ingredients in food, then the onus of proving that the food and the ingredients are safe should rest on the manufacturer and on the regulator.
Remember the whole GM debate? That was when consumers pressured food manufacturers into clear labelling, so at least while there was ongoing research, they could know what was in their food.
You know, with GM, we debated for the longest time at what level did that GM or gene have to be at in order for us to label it genetically modified. And I think we're going through those same debates again. The consumer's right to know what's in their food supply system. And again, that's a debatable topic right now.
While part of the problem is that nanotechnology particles are a relatively recent addition to the food stream, the other part is that we just don't know which ones and what they might be doing.
Well, I want to thank you all folks for making it this far. Hopefully this video has been informative to you and giving you a little insight into what nanofoods are, and given the fact that only 7% have a working knowledge of nanofoods, maybe after this video it gets up to 7.25%, gets around. But as you can see here from this chart, the nanofood explosion is set to just go vertical from here. So it's really important that we get out in front of it and get the masses educated. And while we're at it, we need to fire the FDA, we need to fire the USDA, we need to fire all the government agencies that are working for the corporations and in bed with them, and start growing our own food. Start getting to know your local farmers and bring this to your farmers. They don't know this is going on as well. The other thing we need to do is we need to educate the food activists, and we need to challenge them and confront them who have been so vocal about the GMOs, but they have been complicitly silent about what is going on in the nanofoods that's been occurring for decades. Where's Vandana Shiva speaking out about this? I haven't heard a word about it. How about Jeffrey Smith? He speaks well about the GMOs, but we haven't heard him talk about nanofood intrusion in our foodstuffs now for decades. And how about Michael Pollan? Great guy, great information, but where's his YouTube video showing about the dangers of nanotechnology? And how about the Organic Consumer Association that's supposed to be giving us the righteous news? Why aren't they speaking out and talking about the extreme dangers of nanofoods and the lack of oversight? It's in all our food systems, folks. It's here, it's already here, going into our children and destroying lungs, brain cells, getting in through the blood systems, and unknown consequences. All right, that's all I got for today. Look forward to another video. Please be well. Thanks for listening. Na 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 na, na 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 na. Hey, no more nanofoods. Na 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 na. Our children cry out. Hey, no more nanofoods. Na 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 na. Our children cry out. No more irradiated food. Na 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 na. Our children cry out. No more GMOs. Na 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 na. Our children cry out. No more aspartame. Na 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 na. Our children cry out. No more chemical dyes. Na 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 na. Wake the masses. Let's stop the madness now.